There we go.
Okay. Well, thank you all for being here. I am Jeremy Morris. I am the Silk Director here in Ohio, and I get to come and hang out with everyone and do some of the ILRU training and technical assistance work. With me today, we have Paula McAwee. So we're excited to have her back for a Silk call. And I will start my screen sharing.
So for those
Okay.
who've been on all the calls, we're working you through your spill. So here we go. Next steps.
So yes, this week we're talking about those final steps that you're going to be taking. So we're going to talk about the public comments, the signing of the spill, and the voting that should be done by the Silk for the approval process. So we're going to do a quick reminder of the instructions in the instrument, the public comments and final draft process, gathering signatures, and like I said, the final approval of the council. So we do have the link in the PowerPoint, and it has been in, I think all of the PowerPoints that we've done so far for this training series. Make sure you are using the correct one. If you started using the template from last time, there have been changes. There are things that are updated, so please make sure that you're verifying what template you're using. So the link will take you to the most updated version. And some of the things, just to make sure that you are able to easily spot if you're using the correct one or not. If you download that link and look through section 4, the section about the designated state entity, the section ordering in that entire section has changed. So if you're following the old template, the numbering will not match up with the sections that are in the new template. So please make sure that you're looking at that, and especially the section about oversight of Part B funding. There used to be the note in the instructions about oversight of Part C funding, which has been taken out and moved to the end. That's after you check whether you're a 722 or a 723 state. So if monitoring the Part C funds is not applicable to your DSE, you no longer have to enter any information about that not being applicable. In section 5, there's also additional information about the Silk resource plan. In the law, there's the sections that need to be addressed. And ACL, when this draft was being updated, that was something that they made sure that they wanted in the document, because they want some type of response to each of those categories that are supposed to be included in the resource plan. So after you've verified that you've used the correct template and you have your draft complete, we want to remind you of the 45 CFR 1329.17F, which is part of the public comment requirements around the state plan. And that says the public, including people with disabilities and other stakeholders throughout the state, must have an opportunity to comment on the state plan prior to its submission to the administrator and on any revisions to the approved state plan. Meeting the standard for public input from individuals with disabilities requires providing reasonable modifications in policies, practices, or procedures, effective communication and appropriate auxiliary aids and services for individuals with disabilities, which may include the provision of qualified interpreters and information in alternate formats free of charge. The requirement for public input in this section may be met by holding public meetings before a preliminary draft state plan is prepared and by providing a preliminary draft state plan for comment prior to submission. To meet the public input standard of this section, a public meeting requires that it be accessible, appropriate, and sufficient notice at least 30 days prior to the meeting through various media available to the general public, such as websites, newspapers, and public service announcements, and through specific contacts with appropriate constituency groups. All notices, including notices published on a website and other written material provided at or prior to public meetings, must be available on request in accessible formats. So when you're actually figuring out how your state is going to do that, so if you've already received input on the work of the SPIL prior to creating that first draft, some of the things that you can do as options include posting the final draft of your SPIL for the public and provide detailed ways that they can provide comments. That's a really important part, that you not only have it out, but you let people know the exact way that they can go about making comments on your plan. Because having the document out without giving them the instruction or the resources of how to make comments doesn't really fulfill that you're receiving or giving the opportunity for public comment. You can also hold public hearings on the draft to gather comments. I know a lot of states do a combination of both of those, where they will have the draft out for a period of time, and during that period of time also hold public hearings to gather input on the draft itself. An important note: document the comments that you receive, whether it is in a public forum or if people are submitting written comments to you. Have some type of process that is developed so that you can track the comments that come in, and then have a way to review those comments that come in and make a determination of whether or not any adjustments or amendments to the language in the plan will be made, and keep track of that as well. If you make any decisions based on public comment, it's important to have the information and make sure that you document that entire process. I know from the last year when we had the revision of our state plan, we did a substantial amendment. And one of the questions that was asked by our project officer was to send information on the notice that went out about public comments. So we had all of the information, but they wanted to see the documents and the documentation that we had provided the notice for public comments, the process that was outlined for it, and they wanted to know what comments were received and did you take any action on any of it. So highly recommend create some process for yourself now, so that you know what to follow, you know what will work best, and that you can maintain all of the documentation that you need. Gathering the signatures for this. There will be a new process for this year. And part of it's with the electronic portal that is being finalized. There are some silks that are part of a beta group that are testing out and making sure that things are working properly. So you will enter your entire state plan into this portal for submission. All of the signers will go in and sign electronically through this portal. If you would like, you can also collect signatures outside of the portal as well. If you want to have everyone, come together and physically sign the document together, you are more than welcome to still have that process. But everyone will go through the portal. This will include all of the SIL directors will have the access to sign. The DSE director and your silk chair. If you have any centers that are not Part C funded that sign the SPIL, you will have to notify Q90 when the portal goes live that there are additional centers that need to be included. So you'll have to send that information about the center and their director so that it can be, that their information can be included, so they will have the ability to sign.
Now, I'm curious, is anybody on this call part of this beta test? Do you know, Jeremy, who that is? And
I technically am.
Brooke is, it looks like. Gloria says yes, and you are, Jeremy, but you haven't been able to test it yet, right?
I have not. Some of the, I know that Brooke and Mel both have. Karen's on it as well. Karen may have.
Looks like
Some of the group has started playing with the new tool. I've just gotten to see part of it. So I haven't gotten into it to play with it yet.
Okay.
And Denise from New York is also in, but she hasn't gotten to test it yet.
Looks like Brooke wants to tell us that she's testing it. Is that
I
what you-
did test. I am testing it. We have tested.
How's it going?
This is still being recorded. It's going. There's some. I think that there are some things that can be easily fixed. So it's an electronic portal. There's 9 sections to a state plan. Each section then has subsections. So like section 1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5. Currently, there isn't a way to navigate within sections, and section 1 turns into a pretty substantial section because it includes the summary, the mission, the goals, the objectives, the evaluation. So if you go in and let's say you get your summary and your mission and your goals entered, you have to scroll to the bottom of each page to get to the next section. So if they can change that navigation, there's also some things that once you've input it and you go to either the view mode or you go to the print, it's not transferring everything. I think that will be an easy fix.
Well, that's the purpose of beta testing, is to find things that need fixed. I was thinking, oh, won't this be nicer than collecting signatures by mail like we did a few years ago, right?
So yeah, that we haven't got to the point of hitting submit for signature. I think that's what the button is titled. But once you do that, each center will actually get an email that says they need to enter the portal and sign the SPIL. The SPIL has been entered and is ready for your signature. I don't remember exactly what the wording is. So that will be great. And we did suggest, so you have to have 51% of your centers sign your state plan. Most states' goal is 100%. The state plan has typically always been due in June, the 30th, and the 4th of July is a really popular vacation week. And so if you are like down to the wire and you submit on the 30th, or you are submitting for signatures on the 28th and people are out of town, as long as you get 51%, you can submit to ACL, but then centers can go in even after and they will be able to sign once it's been submitted. And I think they've worked out the kinks so that ACL will also see that those centers have in fact signed as well. So
Of course, earlier the submission, the better. Gloria, did you, I didn't want to not answer you. Did you have something to add there with your experience?
Oh, no, Brooke did a great job. We haven't submitted ours either. It's just nice to open it up and see, you know, all of everyone that's on our part of our centers, their names are already there. I did a pilot test of what it would look like when it's printed out. And I really like what I see, but we're not done yet at all with entering all of our data, or all of our content. But yeah, I think once they get some of the little glitches ironed out, it'll be great. The one section I think that I realize we're gonna have to take a little bit more time in to entering. There's a checkbox that you have to check for your counties that are for served versus underserved and unserved. That might take a little bit more time, but we're still testing it out.
Well, I just appreciate that feedback. I was just curious about how it's looking so far. Sorry for the interruption, Jeremy.
Before we go on and to piggyback on Gloria's, it auto populates your county, your centers, and then your counties that are served. And so you go through each center and say this center serves these 3 or 7, or pick the counties. And then at the end of that section, so this is all in section 3.1, at the end of the section, it populates the counties you've selected and it says full services or limited services. So being at this stage of the state plan process, that's not data we've asked for from centers in the past, and so Oregon, for example, we've already done our public comment period. We're ready to submit a draft, but if it's asked, there's a few other things that have come over from instructions that were labeled as examples that have now entered into the instrument. So there, we do have a couple of concerns about that.
So especially, I hear you saying if centers are not fully serving some of the counties, they want that distinction made in the SPIL.
Well, and they're saying full, I believe it's full services or limited services. And so what does that mean? Like, we provide all 5 core services in this county, but we only provide INR and peer counseling in this county. Like, we've never gotten into that level of detail. And it just kind of gives me pause to have some of those, what could be more difficult conversations with centers. Because it puts the silk in a position of monitoring with an uppercase M, and we don't monitor with an uppercase M, we monitor with a little baby m. And so when we start asking questions that are more pointed and more direct to what centers are providing, I anticipate pushback. So
yeah, certainly they should reveal that, and you should not decide that for them. So the centers should be saying for themselves whether they provide full or limited services. Yeah, Gloria?
Yes, because as soon as we seen that in the portal, I had a conversation with the center director representative in North Carolina. And one of the things that is going to also be confusing is, in one section, you're defining underserved and unserved and served, and then you get to this section and now you're talking about limited services and full services, and that's going to get really confusing. And I think that's going to maybe cause some delays as well, in entering all this information.
And is there anything in the instructions, I just don't know. Is there anything in the instructions defining any of this? I don't think there is, from what you're saying.
So we've always done the unserved and underserved definitions. And I feel like this year it was served was added to those other 2. I feel like the unserved and underserved have always been there, and served was added. And I was like, well, isn't served exactly what it says? But we came up with a better definition than it's exactly what it says. But the limited versus full language. So some of the terms, I'm like, there's another example. So within the instructions, it's always talked about, well, within both the instructions and the instrument, it's always talked about goals and objectives. There is a part in the instructions that says objectives I could find the actual wording, but it's basically objectives have the same meaning as outcomes. But now they're asking for objectives and outcomes. And it's like, okay, well, aren't they the same thing? Or do we have to come up with different words? And, you know, you get 60 days out and you don't have time to be coming up with new words and get the public comment that
Right.
is deserved.
Well, thanks for letting us kind of go off on that tangent, but I didn't know, Jeremy, you had something else to add to that?
I don't, if I did, I don't remember now.
Okay. Well, Sarah asked, when is it expected for the new portal to go live? And my understanding is it is live? No, not yet.
Mm-mm.
Do we have a projected date from ACL? Not that I'm aware of yet. Hopefully
I believe
soon.
the goal was sometime in the month of April was the current goal that the last I heard.
Okay, good.
So,
I'm gonna be quiet now and let Jeremy resume. He's got good stuff for you.
well, we only have a couple more slides here. One thing we wanted to make sure, you know, what does final approval of the silk look like? So there should be some type of final approval process for your silk after the public comment has been received and reviewed and any decisions made. You should do this during a one of your regular public meetings, or if you have a special meeting, but it should be a public meeting. The final draft should be presented to the silk members, and you should have a vote of the council that approves the content of the SPIL, that you have an agreement to follow the indicators and something to authorize your chairperson to be the designee to sign on behalf of the entire silk. So just make sure you have a process that goes on within your council so that, again, you're following that everything around the SPIL is being done in public meetings, and you have that final authorizing vote before everything gets submitted. And with that, for ongoing technical assistance, as always, you can contact Paula McAwee. There are some resources at the end of the PowerPoint. So you have the Rehab Act, the regulations, the state plan instrument instructions again, and the silk indicators.
And of course,
And with
Jeremy for technical assistance around some of this.
okay.